Tough time never lasts, but tough people do last. When the goings get tough, the tough get going. And when the preferable is not available, the available becomes the preferable. When diplomacy fails, boots on the ground. Those who are familiar with political science and international relations will tell you that boots are only sent on the ground when diplomacy fails. And within this context, it is stated that all necessary avenues in terms of diplomacy which constitute dialogue, discussion and negotiation before boots are sent on the ground. And by boots on the ground, in political science and international relations, it means the sending of forces and law and order on the ground to maintain peace when dialogue fails within this context. And it was that pretext that was used in the USA by the former president George Bush when he announced or launched a war with Saddam Hussein. That was when diplomacy failed between the American government and, of course, the government of Saddam Hussein. And we've seen these principles within the advent of the Second World War, when the Germans gave an ultimatum and the ultimatum was not respected based on diplomacy. And when the diplomacy fails, boots are on the ground. But in Cameroon, the context is different. It is seen that boots on the ground, but before diplomacy, boots on the ground and before diplomacy. That is why it is often said that l'impossible n'est pas camerounais. A case in hand is when the teacher strike started in 2017. When it started in 2017, the lawyers were seen on the street demonstrating and for better reform as far as the judicial system is concerned, and equally demanding that the common law system be instituted in 2016. And when that happened in 2016, boots were sent on the ground before the diplomacy even started. And the case was seen in November 2016 at the University of Boya, when students went on demanding that 10,000 francs levy be removed from receipt examination. And just before diplomacy could start, boots were arranged on the ground, tear gas, sandwich entire Moliko, and cities were broken into by boots on the ground. And these are the contexts we see as far as it's concerned. And when this move for the Prime Ministerial Interministerial Committee was called in 2016, and when the teachers, the Interministerial Committee members failed to call the teachers to call off the strike, then boots were sent on the ground. This time, legitimately on the 17th of January 2017. At that point in time, the crisis fell in the hands of government's most dreaded enemy. And this period witnessed an outrage, and Cameroonians in the north and southwest region took to the street to what became known as the September 22, where thousands of people stormed the street from Moyoka, Kumba, Bui, and all the rest of the southwest and northwest region, demanding that what they call a look into the teachers and the lawyers' protests. At that point in time, it was peace plant, water, red oil dominating the conflict at the time, which was peaceful. But when boots further went on the ground, we witnessed a difficult and turbulent times, which now metamorphosed into what is known as the full-blown armed conflict in Cameroon. We've been to 4 years now, from September 22 to September, from September 22, 2017 to September 22, 2020. What has been achieved as far as that is concerned, and a look into the ongoing socio-political atmosphere within Cameroon context. This is House of Commons with me, JAVIS. You're welcome back from that break, and if you are just joining us, you're watching House of Commons. We have difficulties bringing the program to you on Facebook. We are streaming live on YouTube, BT Media group on Facebook, BT Media group on YouTube rather. When you go to YouTube, you see BT Media group and program. To those of you who may want to watch the program online, because of as Cameroon is concerned, we cannot authoritatively say what is ongoing as far as internet is concerned, but there seems to be a problem with the internet connection we have as far as Facebook and WhatsApp is concerned. To all those of you who may want to use a VPN, welcome on board. To begin today's program, we are looking at September 22, 2017, September 22, 2020, which is in few days to come. What has been achieved? Here in the studio, we have Professor Mark Anthony. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you Javis, and thank you to the million viewers of this particular media, and to my fellow panelists. I want to say this is a beautiful Sunday, which I believe is going to be an educative morning again for most of us who are sitting by our screens, and those of us who love BT Media as a channel to watch. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Professor Mark, and equally here in the studio we have Derek. Thanks for joining us on today's program.
Thank you very much, Javis. It is the day the Lord has made, that we rejoice and be glad in it. A shout out to all the million viewers of My Media Prime, and greetings to all our brothers and sisters in Cameroon and Southern Cameroons in particular.
Thanks for joining us, viewers. These are the gentlemen with whom we are going to continue our discussion while waiting for some of our panelists who will be joining us here as time goes on. To begin the program with, I started my kicker for today, which was September 22, 2017 to September 22, 2020. We are 4 years on. What has been achieved so far? Professor Mark, I will start with you because you were on the ground that day, the fervent that fateful September 22, 2017, when the crisis started. But before the September 22, we've witnessed the teachers, the lawyers in Moya, to be more precise, because a corner to Moya is about 10 to 15 minutes. When the faculty lawyers went on the street that morning, it was difficult. Can you just paint a picture as to where we are now, looking at 2016 and 2017?
Thank you again, Javis. When you go back memory lane, you discover that Cameroon has a way of handling situations which to me is actually archaic. Why do I say archaic? Because in the as far back as colonial times, there was no diplomacy in discussing with those who come out as citizens who come to riot. What they were supposed to what they were meted with were actually guns. Today, the same thing continues after a period of, let me use the word, over 60 years period of time. The same thing continues. In 2016, when most, beginning with the lawyers, when the lawyers actually sent out the, should I say, the memorandum to the government asking for what they actually want. One of their demands were they want should I say magistrate, civil law magistrate to leave common law courts.
And common law to be fully implemented.
And secondly, they asked for federation as it was in the 1961 constitution. When you see some of those demands, actually there were some demands that the government saw as overstepping their bounds, precisely considering the issue of federation, because to them it was like separation. And I don't know why it is still difficult today in Cameroon to see federation like a system of government, not separation of states. So with that, the lawyers, the day they came out, I think that was 2017, they met with boots on the ground. 16, yeah, beg your pardon. They met in October. Yes, I think October 2016. Yes. They met with boots. They were molested by police people. Some of them were tear gassed, especially those in Bamenda. In Bamenda, the thing started well. They sat, they discussed, and when they were about to leave, that's when tear gas started. In Boya, they didn't even give them the opportunity to gather.
In Moya,
they got them. Some of them were beaten like children. Some of their wigs were seized from them. That is not what a nation that is a nation of law, a nation that believes in law, should actually do to lawyers. Lawyers, when they come out, it means things are not going well. And the government sent police people and gendarmes to actually solve their problem, and that was with tear gas and molestation, repression. Those are the things that happened that day. And when you look memory lane, 2017, September 2017, on the 22nd, I was right in a corner. That morning, the morning was supposed to be just a normal morning. I was still sleeping in fact, I was still on my bed, not like sleeping, when I heard shouts on the street. With that, I had to jump out of bed to come and check what is happening. When I came, I saw crowds of people with peace plans in their hands. Where were they heading to? To Boya. And the march up to Boya, I think it's that same 22nd that one young man was shot by the mayor. Was that same 22nd?
Yeah, it was alleged that but the mayor rebuked
that he didn't do it. Okay, they shot one young man that same day, and it was alleged that it was the mayor who did it, and it resulted to more riots. So what am I saying? That was a problem that was not supposed to get to this level it is today. Like we are talking today. Today is the 22nd of September. I mean, today is the 20th of September. Remembering that day at times, tears, because in Bui, about 5 persons, according to the reports of the Minister of Communication that day, 5 persons were killed.
Right, former minister.
Yes, according to his report that day, 5 persons were killed, which from reports on the ground, more than 20 persons died. And so you see, it started with death, and the deaths have continued. So that's just to say the Cameroon government doesn't actually know how to negotiate diplomatically. They know how to negotiate with force.
So it is boots first on the ground before diplomacy.
First on the ground before diplomacy. And you see, that is how this situation is. But I think that it is based on the system that was instituted after colonialism. That's the system that was instituted when the colonial masters were about to leave during the period of independence. Since that system has been there, it has never been changed, and that's what we need to look into to see that there's an upgrade in the system, because I would likely say the actual problem of African nations is not that of individuals. The actual problem of African nations is systemic, and so we need to get to a place where we are able to overhaul the systems that we have, because they are colonial systems, and the colonial master does not negotiate with the slaves, because he considered the colonies and the citizens, the individuals in the colony, as slaves, not as citizens. And so the way they treat us like we are slaves. And that system is still in operation. Even our governments are still using it unconsciously, because they were trained to live to govern like that. And that is why I will still insist that if Africa, and particularly Cameroon, needs to emerge, like we are talking of emergence in 2035, that emergence can only happen if the systems we have right now are overhauled. Because with these systems we have right now, Cameroon will never go anywhere. And that 2035 emergence is a dream that I don't see it being realized. We are in 2020, and 50 years from now, and to be sincere, with the systems we have in place, you see, one of the reasons why Kamto and his people are actually vying,
I think we'll come to
yes,
that.
we'll go to that, are vying to go out to the street, is that of systems. But they have failed to see it as a problem of system, and they are looking at an individual.
Song Derek, September 22, 2017. September 22, 2020 will mark 4 years. And I want you to, before coming to a brief as to looking at the September 22 nationwide, because at the point in time focus was on the Anglophone sector, that's the north and southwest region, during 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020, prior to Maurice Kamto announcement in what he captioned the DOUALA. I want to get your view. You were on the ground as far as that day is concerned. We are 4 years on now. How was the reality?
You know, when you talk of 22nd September in the history of the Anglophone struggle, it was a turning point, because I remember on that day the head of state was to address the UN assembly, and the protest was like a denial, or trying to tell the world that despite the fact he was speaking in front of you, there were problems boiling home, and this protest was all over. And we could remember how helicopters were spraying tear gas in the air, bullets in the air, and people came out with their peace plans, saying that enough is enough, and it was necessary for us to review this relationship we call that we've come to build, to call as a nation Cameroon. And I think that the people came out. That was one of the first time we saw the women who came out, the tackling, they call it the tackling band. They came out, and we could see old women. I remember one old woman in Bamenga who could not even walk, but she saw people walking. She was in the street, and it became like a spirit. It was more of a spiritual move. Yeah. Unfortunately, the government we have in Cameroon seems to copy her notes and never reads them, because they have that idea that quenches down people. And it's the same thing everywhere, because from that 22nd till now, all what we have had is guns on the street. Despite the calls from international organizations that it is necessary we sit on a round table and talk, but the government has always thought that the guns were going to silence the people, because before the beginning it was the same. Before that 22nd, remember, Wiba had spoken in the parliament, and before Wiba spoke, it was very clear that he had done some background work.
That was during the 2016 session. November session at the parliament. Session.
So he had spoken, and before he spoke, there were a lot of proofs that Wiba had.
That was November session.
Yes, he made it clear that he has been to A, B, C, D, and some people say, what are you going to do? You are just 2 cubes of sugar, and it showed the effort he had made. But like a prophecy he made, 22nd made it clear that people were angered, people were tired, and they needed to revindicate. Unfortunately, the Iron Man of Yaoundé met them on the streets with bullets.
When you say Iron Man, what do you mean by Iron Man? Because you know that we have a democratically elected president who is the guarantor of Cameroon's sovereignty and national security, and head of Cameroon's magistracy.
You should not say head of Cameroon, you should say head of everything in Cameroon. He's not a head of a particular thing, he heads just everything. The judiciary, the executive, the everything.
Empowered by the constitution.
An individual constitution, not the Cameroon's constitution.
Can I step in?
Yes,
I want to say something. That is where I said we have a systemic problem. The constitution is an institution that was actually established by men. It is not a God-given institution, and men do make errors when they do things. So it doesn't mean that because something is in the constitution it is right. So the rightness of that particular constitution is not based on the fact that it is written inside there. No, it is supposed to be based on justice. But if we look at the constitution, it has a problem which needs to be corrected. The constitution needs to be amended in order to establish institutions that are strong. That particular institution is not strong because power has been given to an individual. It's not strong.
So it is an institutional problem.
Yes,
of course.
Okay. Now, the teachers in 2016 wanted that there should be redeployment of teachers. I think before coming to the context of September 22 that we are to witness as far as Cameroon is concerned, the teachers for 2016 wanted that the redeployment of teachers from their region of origin be done, and the government did that teachers were sent to their region of origin, and they equally wanted that subvention be given to lay private institutions, and the government promised 2 billion subvention to be given to lay private institutions. In your capacity to as a teacher, I know that there were some demands that you people tabled as far as that was concerned, and we equally looked at the aspect of that the educational system should be protective and should be purely Anglo-Saxon in such a way that there should not be dominance, and that French teachers should not be sent to teach within the North and South region subjects that are purely Anglo-Saxon, and they could be sent to teach something like French. As far as that is concerned, most of the demands tabled by the teachers at the point in time, based on what Cameroon's minister said, Paul Atanganji, that the demands were all met, and equally based on what the chairperson of the Interministerial Ad Hoc Committee, Paul Nico Gogomo, said, that the demands have been met, in what he captioned that the demands of teachers and have been met, and only the return of a two-state federation, which will not be looked into, and the government of Cameroon will assume its full responsibility if the teachers fail to call off the strike action.
Thank you very much, Javis. I will say here that when the teachers and the lawyers were vindicated, there was a time during the ad hoc committee meeting that the teachers made it clear. In fact, the consortium that was formed made it clear that it was quite difficult for them to keep bringing problems, because at every meeting there was a new problem, that it was necessary that they too should propose solutions to the problem. And they realized that what could be the solution of the crisis of the because what happened was, the people who had the problem were the Anglophone teachers, the lawyers were the Anglophone lawyers. Mantra BBC, it was about the Anglophone region. So the consortium thought that rather than us bringing this bundle of problems every day that will not end, it is better we look at the core problem. We look at something that when we solve that particular problem, the other things will fall into place. That is when we started hearing something like federation coming, because the lawyers decried, and the lawyers said they are losing their Anglo-Saxon common law. They are losing the common law system, and it was necessary that they go back to the drawing board to bring back that system. If not, it will be swallowed completely by the civil law. They made that clear, and the teachers too said, we are tired of having teachers who could not speak English teaching different subject other than French in the Anglophone region. They didn't reject French teacher. They said teachers who are not Anglophone oriented trying to teach different subjects. And it is true, because if you go even to some university, like University of Beira, maybe in the accounting department, you see a lecturer who comes to teach and is trying to teach you in pidgin language. And then when you ask a question, you say, I cannot explain. It's evidence. So the teachers had the right. And if you talk about when you talk about the 2 billion that was disbursed, 2 billion subvention, and I don't know where it trickled down to.
Promised 2 billion subvention.
I don't know if you are going to end with a statement promise or it finally came out. Was the money kept out? That answer, you should be a better journalist to dig out that, because it was promised, and there was also a promise of employment of I think 2,000 bilingual teachers, science teachers.
1,000 bilingual science teachers were recruited.
So all those things, we want to ask, to what extent, where is the balance sheet of all those things? The money disbursed, 2 billion. Now, let's take for instance, 2 billion disbursed. How many private schools are in Cameroon? If you want to go by the fact that there are, say, 10,000 private schools in Cameroon, if you take 2 billion divided by 10,000, how much would get to a single private school? And in one private school, how many teachers are there? How much will it subsidize? So when we want to talk some things, there are some certain things that we should be very realistic. And what is happening in Cameroon, we should understand that there are effects of negligence. There are effects of the fact that some people have made laws and they have excluded themselves from that law. You cannot make law and the law affects other, and then you sit in a particular office thinking that you are above the law. When you go against something, we throw the book at you. It is the law that punishes you. But in Cameroon, those who make the law are above the law.
Okay.
That is why we are where we are and nothing is changing.
That's why we are where we are and nothing is changing. Professor Mark, I think I will come to you again. We have to move now. We are looking at the journey of September 22 and of course what has been achieved so far as that is concerned. And I think that during the period of September 22, Cameroon Minister of Justice, who happens to be DOUALA, and said that in one of his interviews in Journal Afrique that was published on the 4th of April 2018, he said, when the lawyers on strike shall get hungry, they will return to the courtroom. The other texts were published in the official journal in 1999. I don't know a lawyer who doesn't consult the journal. Today, the other text is being used as a pretext to initiate a crisis. And Cameroon's Minister of Territorial Administration and Territorial Administration, and Paul Atanganji, then he was Minister in charge of Special Duties, said there is no Anglophone problem and that what we have is Cameroon problem. And in French he says il n'y a existé pas de problème anglophone, la dialogue inclusif among avistes n'est pas de sens. Les sécessionnistes sont dans leur demeure. So when we look at this context, we are looking at what so far, but looking at the dynamics have changed. What has been achieved so far
from both sides?
Yes, both sides.
Deaths have been achieved so far, because a problem that started with just grievances of individuals, which could be handled at the level of grievances and actually peace brought back to the societies, resulted to mismanagement. The mismanagement from the direction of the ministers who were in question handling the issue. For example, the Minister of Higher Education, the responses he gave concerning the crisis resulted to more anger. The way Gogomo and his committee responded and related to the consortium resulted to more anger. When you go back looking at those statements you just read there, where the Minister of Justice Lorenzo was bold to declare that after these lawyers would have refused, boycotted the courts, and when hunger strikes, they'll go back to the courtroom. He failed to see that it was not just a law problem. It was not an issue that was concerning the lawyers. He was not looking further. He was looking at something that was so close to his eyes, and he was living in the past, not in the future, because he knows that when things like this happen, when they are cracked down upon with some heart, let me use the word, when they are cracked down upon hardly, what happens is they retrieve. That's how the situation of Cameroon has always been. When they crack down on you, you run into the house. They never expected that the situation will degenerate to this particular level we are. And if you look at it, every minister that comes, when it was Rene Sadi, it was that the problem will end soon. When Atanganji comes, he says there is no problem. In fact, everything is under control. That is not true. When a lot of lives are being taken. So you ask me what has been achieved, I will still come back to say deaths have been achieved. More lives have been taken. From that time, according to official statistics, it shows that over 3,000 persons are dead. But in relation to other statistics which are not in relation to official, more than 12,000 and 15,000 people are dead. Those deaths are not only the Anglophones dying. The sons and daughters of the Bamileke people, of the Bulu people, call the names of the Northerners. They are dying in the Northwest as military people and gendarmes and police. They are dying up there, and they are dying in the Northwest and the Southwest. Why? Because some greedy persons have decided to handle problems in an archaic manner, in the colonial manner. when they fail to understand that Cameroon, we are Cameroonians. You see, I get angry when I see a black man in America killed by a police or a gendarme, killed by police, and the black people rise up and say Black Lives Matter. The question is, does it only matter in the Americas, or it matters also in Africa? Black lives should matter everywhere. It should matter in Africa. Africans killing Africans is the worst crime that should be tolerated. And worst one is our governments giving. They are supposed to be the ones that should put the nation in order, but the different strategies that they have brought in handling the problems are so should I use the word cosmetic, window dressing strategies, which cannot actually result to solutions. Because when a crisis is taking place where people have picked up arms and they are shooting one another, and you come, instead of bringing them to the table, like for example in September 20, we are in September 28, was 2018?
September, yes, 30th to October.
Where the Grand National Dialogue actually held. The question is, in that particular dialogue, what did they solve? Did they take the guns from the hands of these young men? I saw some young men who said they had abandoned their guns. I thought that was the entire crew that had abandoned their guns. But I still, that same day as that dialogue was taking place, some people were still being killed in the northwest and in the southwest. So that question, Mr. Javis, makes me feel sad in my spirit, because what the Cameroon government and the Amber boys have been able to achieve, or let me use the Amber so-called leaders who are abroad, living big and nice in their comfortable houses, what they have been able to achieve are the death of innocent civilians. And what the Cameroon government has been able to achieve is the death of innocent civilians.
Okay. Are you telling us that the creation of the Bilingualism and Multiculturalism Commission is not an achievement?
All those are window dressings. Those are cosmetic solutions.
Are you saying that a redeployment of teachers within the northern southwest region is not an achievement?
Let me ask you a question.
Reconstruction committee, reconstruction which is to be activated in a few months to come, is not an achievement? Are you saying that the
you are quoting a lot of things which to me
I just want to say you respond to as it's good for us to clear the air, so that whoever watching us to understand that there have been some achievements so far too. You cannot just entirely deny the fact that the reshape of ministerial positions, we now have ministerial territorial administration as an achievement as far as Anglophone is concerned. Those are not achievements.
Those are not achievements. When we say let me show you something. You have done negotiation. When you look at conflict management, when we say we have achieved something in conflict management, what is the result? The end result should be peace. Is that not so? Do we have peace? Okay, if we say that we have been able to deploy civil law lawyers into civil law courts and civil law magistrates into civil law courts, is that what is happening? Of recent, the recent appointment by the president proved that they are not going in front, they are going backward. And so you can't name all those are window dressing strategies that are brought up. Those are cosmetic solutions to a problem that is strong on the ground. And so I'll just let me learn. This thing we are talking about is not a joke. I don't know if the lives of individuals are considered. I mean, both the military and the civilians and the Amber boys that are being killed every day. I was looking at some acts that took place of recent, where some young military guys, a young man died, was killed. I look at a stream of Amber boys killed, most of it civilians killed. I cried, because I don't expect that the government of Cameroon should keep on with that. Why am I calling the government of Cameroon? Because as we are talking right now, the only person that has the audacity to handle this problem is the government of Cameroon.
Okay,
the Amber leaders cannot do it.
Thank you, Professor Mark. What has been achieved for the government is their share imposition of more rule, repression, and military rule in the northwest region. They've gained more voice talking about the plight. Third, though many have died and many displaced, they're proving the government, the non-state army are proving the government that they cannot be silenced. It's coming from Moya from Limbe. I'll come now to you, Song. On the 22 of September 2017, Ernest Obama spoke on To the Horizon that the government should stop playing with these people. There is no country in the world that jokes with terrorists. A minority group in Nigeria is also asking for independence. Are people not killed there? And the phones. It's time to put in place extreme repressive measures against the Anglophones. What is in this whole thing about Anglophone? All my daughters are in Anglophone schools in Yaoundé neighborhoods, which are predominantly Anglophones. Anglophone needs to put under surveillance in the north in Yaoundé. That was Ernest Obama quoting that. That was September 22. Now, when we come looking at the context as to where we are now, a lot have been achieved both from the negative and the positive perspective, but I want us to look at the positive side of this. You cannot entirely rule out that the creation of Bilingualism Commission with Peter Mafani Mosonge is not an achievement as far as the only Anglophone crisis is concerned, and you cannot totally rule out the fact that effective accelerated, because it has been rebranded now to accelerated decentralization. It's not an achievement. We are not talking about regional council election, which will be in the months ahead, thanks to the fact that the crisis started and the government saw the need to accelerate the process of decentralization so that local government can take ownership of their communities. But we look at this context, are those not achievements that we should say yes? However, there have been some major steps.
I refuse to accept what you say. If you check Cameroon and its context, we have a system that plays with language and wants us to clap. It's just like now we are thinking of Cameroon to emerge in 2035. We think that is a new thing. It came with Cameroon of great ambition. It came of Cameroon of greater realization. It came with different names, and today we are talking of emergence. Let's not mix up this thing, that the creation of the Commission of Bilingualism, it minimized the problem that the Anglophone posted, because it made as if the problem of the Anglophone is a language problem. The problem of Anglophone is a cultural problem that if we don't dig deep into, we will minimize it to language. And we will not hide the achievement that we have achieved human rights abuses. We have achieved that because people used to cry when they saw others die. Today you pass by the road, you are even running in the street, you are running on dead people, and it is just nothing to you. At first, when you go for a burial ceremony, you come back, you couldn't sleep at night. Now it has become a daily normal. That is an achievement. It's a wonderful achievement, and the people are celebrating. There has been what? Disorganization of social life and economic life. It has been what we have achieved because people's life has been disorganized. The social life, the economic, it's unstable. And if those who had the knife and the yam to solve this problem were not happy, then this problem should have been solved. We have also achieved to be run a country of propaganda, because Cameroon is being ruled by propaganda now, both from the restorationist camp and from the government camp. Everything is propaganda. They are using people's lives like guinea pigs. Our lives are being taken to the laboratory at any time for experiments. That is an achievement. One other achievement I should tell you is mismanagement has been achieved. He has told us how we can mismanage. Another thing I will tell you this country has achieved is that it has exposed the institutional institutional weaknesses of this country. Because if the institution was firm and strong, then this problem would have been handled. But because of some people who wine and dine, who eat in Yaoundé on tables of big men, they come out and they tell you there is no problem. Everything is under control. Those are achievements. Some people have made their way illegally through to ministerial positions. Some people have gained appointment because of the crisis. A lot of things have been achieved, and those who have criticized and insulted the Anglophones have gained big positions. We cannot hide those negative achievements. But if you want to belittle this thing like the creation of multiculturalism, Cameroon is bicultural and Cameroon is bijural. When you start talking about by the constitution, that is how Cameroon is. So when you start talking about multiculturalism, we are talking about the Beti, you are talking about the Bambileke, you are talking about the Com, you are talking about the multiculturalism. You are talking about yes. And let's not mix this thing. Shoot, or if this people were serious and understood that the life we live matter, whether the military who have sworn to defend the integrity of the country, or the restorationists who have sworn to defend the integrity of their newfound loved country, the two parties should have come together to understood that whether it is the restorationists that are dying, or the military that are dying, or the innocent civilians caught between the crossfire, all lives matter. We should stop sending condolence messages to George Lloyd in the United States of America, who is killed and is killed by a white, and we start carrying placard that Black Lives Matter, whereas right in front of our nostrils we are killing blacks, and it is not. How many people have died? And then you hear a president from Africa sending a message to USA, say, I condemn with all my force the killing of George Lloyd of America. Why should George Lloyd's life matter in America, and your own brother, your own person you claim to be a citizen, doesn't matter?
Hi, Javis.
So far, nice. So good. We have achieved just nothing because the government is busy with flower beds decoration, while the real problem is eating deeper.
Hi, Javis. Nice and educative program. Great Prof Mark and Mr. Song. They are the best panelists for this topic. It's coming from Esther in Yaoundé, and this other one which it says please be civil when sending us your SMS. Remember that Cameroon is a state of law. Javis, all those you listed as achievement are very, very minimal and had no effect on the present problem. Greetings to you in the studio, John in Mayebanu. And Israel is a good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to everyone. It's like Satan has settled in our nation because the government just loves watching people dying every day, but 99 days for the thief and 1 day for the owner. It's coming from Kevin in Yaoundé. This is how it says, good afternoon to you all in the studio. We have difficulties watching your program online. I'm sure that the government may have restricted the internet because of the ongoing Campus threat. Could you please tell us what is happening on the internet, or is just a thought that we had? Thank you very much. And so I think I'll come back to you, Professor Mark. We look at achievement in different perspectives. I think we are looking at what has been achieved so far as this is concerned. We've seen that there have been an institution of a common law bench at Enam that has been done. There have been the translation of the Ohada law which has been done. They've been equally the speedy nature and the employment opportunities for Anglophones within the north and southwest region of the country. I think we should give a tap to the government on the back.
Okay, I want to quote Dr. Chuba Okadigbo. What he said: if you are emotionally attached to your tribe, religion, or political leaning, to the point that truth and justice become secondary considerations, your education is useless. Your exposure is useless. If you cannot reason beyond petty sentiments, you are a liability to mankind. You see, I am not a politician to come here and play games. All whatsoever you have listed, they are supposed to be the rights of the people, not an achievement of the government. The constitution that was drawn, though it is a weak institution, it had pointed out some of those things you are naming, which were supposed to have been instituted. It is not because of a crisis that concerns a group of persons that we should come now and say it is an achievement. Secondly, I want to join O.C. Joshua to say that a NAM is supposed to be scrapped down. It's not an institution that is supposed to exist in Cameroon. When you ask me of where are magistrates and lawyers supposed to be trained, do we have a law school in Cameroon? There's none. That's why it's supposed to be established.
But there's a bar.
There's a bar association is as an association, but we need a law school where you go, you are trained to be a lawyer, which it becomes automatic to be part of the bar. But we do not have a bar, a law school in Cameroon, because we do not see that as the obvious part. We establish a NAM, which is still being in a NAM. What they teach is the colonial system, colonial magisterial system, colonial leadership system. We are not we are no more a colony of France. Neither are we a colony of the English people. We are standing now and we are called Cameroon. A NAM is not an institution that should exist in teaching our administrators and leaders in Cameroon anymore. That is an institution that train slave masters. It is not there to train leaders. That institution should be removed. So when you talk of an English bench has nothing to do. Was it not supposed to be there, knowing that according to our constitution, Cameroon is a bi-jura nation? It is supposed to be like that. So the constitution carries in it the truth about this nation, but we reject it on physical and physical plans and strategies of every day. So we are not supposed to be appreciating a government which is slow in accomplishing things that it is obvious that they are supposed to accomplish. It took 24 years for us to start talking about regional elections. After the constitution had
the government will tell you that the process administration is slow but surely. Yeah?
You see, this is the issue. Constitution should be something that should be established immediately. Why did they sit down and draw the constitution? Was it so that they can take a very long period of time, a gradual period of time to accomplish it? No. And how much time is gradual? Because I can't understand that for over 24 years the constitution, the laws actually state something else and we are living something else, and then we come to claim that Cameroon is a state of law when we are going against the law of the state. So you see, when you see things like that, you start asking questions. Who is the law? Then the country, because the constitution is the law. But we have taken 24 years to practice what the law wants. So what do you want me to say? And the idea of a special status, where is that one coming from? Is it in the constitution? It's not a constitutional issue. So if they want to amend the constitution and put it in there so that we can believe it, because special statute today is just something that has been said by words of lips. And what will happen is that as long as it's not in the constitution, it can be wiped tomorrow. So we should not get to a place where we play with words.
Are you saying that the other things which have been wiped in the constitution
everything that is not in the constitution that has been brought up is a play of what? They will double it today to make you feel like the problem has been solved. Okay, when the lawyers asked that all the civil law magistrates should be removed from common law courts, something happened. Some of them were removed. The wrestling appointment cancelled everything that happened. That's to make you understand word of mouth has no power. And the funny thing is that those lawyers were actually demanding something that's found in the Constitution, because the Constitution says Cameroon is a bi-jura nation, which implies that they are supposed to accept the common law as part and parcel of the judicial system in Cameroon, as well as accept the civil law as part of the judicial system in Cameroon. And so if you are supposed to appoint persons who are supposed to be magistrates of courts, they are supposed to be based on their understanding of the law system. So if today we are in a bafia dance to and fro, question is, what has been achieved? Nothing.
Greetings, Mr. Javis. This system is not working for its citizens. Rather, they are working for their selfish interests, and they are every day achieving their selfish goals. But the unfortunate thing is that those who are fighting for us are becoming more and more selfish too, like our enemies. It's coming from Kimbe Maxwell from Bonaberry. Kimbe Maxwell, thanks for giving us your opinion. This other one really says, good afternoon to you all in the studio. I have a problem accessing my internet. Is it that what happened in North and Southwest is now happening in DOUALA, where I am a refugee? This is coming from Ayuk in Bonaberry. Ayuk sometimes anyway, Ayuk, we cannot tell what is happening with the internet, because we too here in the studio, we are affected by the internet connection. We are affected by the internet connection. I'll come to you, Songberry. In 2016, Minister Paul Atanganji, after the teachers and the law, 2017, Minister Paul Atanganji, when the situation was kind of tense, that was after December chaos, Mr. Paul Atanganji was interviewed on one of our mother channels. He said, they are asking the situation in Bamenda. He said the situation in Bamenda is under control. The teachers and the lawyers have to be careful. The teachers have to be careful. The lawyers have to be careful. That some of these teachers and lawyers association have collected huge sums of money from partners abroad to want to destabilize Cameroon, and that enough is enough. That Cameroon government is unfair. And he equally went further in saying that those who say Cameroon Anglophones are marginalized is not true. That Anglophone marginalization is not true, and that national unity is something, in this word, and I quote, national unity is something we cannot tamper with. It's something that the head of state, His Excellency President Paul Biya, has worked so hard in the years to rebuild. And today he cannot be talking about Anglophone or Francophone marginalization. It makes no sense. In the country where for the past 40-50 years Anglophone is the prime minister, in the country where the past 40-50 years Anglophones are head of units and control huge sums of money in terms of the custom, director general of custom, in a country where the Anglophones are highly placed, and that we have Anglophones who are living in DOUALA, and we have who have been living in DOUALA for the past 40-50 years, and we have Anglophones who have been living in Bamenda for the past 40-50 years. So today we cannot be talking about Anglophone or Francophone marginalization. It makes no sense. The teachers associations wants to destabilize Cameroon. End of quote. Minister Paul Atanganji. We have politicians talking to the people. Another statement he made. Open quote. We have politicians talking to the people. We have chiefs talking to the people, and the situation is under control. And the few people who have been misled, I'm sure the security officials will take care of that. Now coming to the situation now in 2018, 2020, where are we? Well, Minister Paul Atanganji not right to say that those people may have collected huge sums of money to want to destabilize Cameroon. But we look at the current dispensation now of people infighting within the camps of alleged soldiers.
And when he was appointed the Minister of Territorial Administration, he said that the head of state has found confidence in him and made him the Minister of Territorial Administration. You should understand that Minister Paul Atanganji is a news-seeking minister. He always wants to be on the headlines, and he said he was under control. That was in 2017. This is 2020. It is still under control, and those are people, some of whom have said that there is no problem and there is no humanitarian problem, but they are the ones taking aids from outside the country to go and distribute. It's ironical that somebody refuses the existence of a problem, yet receives solution to go and provide. These are the reasons why we say the crisis is going round and round. If he said some people have collected money, we should accept, and at the same time we should understand that the core people destabilizing this country, they sit in same high offices, because somebody is eating fat somewhere from this crisis, be it the government or be it from the diasporans of southern Cameroons. Somebody is eating fat, and if you know somebody has collected money, who has collected that money? Because these are things that should have been solved. At the beginning he said there was no Anglophone problem. He rejected that there was a Cameroonian problem, and Cameroon being one and indivisible. But the French brothers never for once came out to deny the killing of their English-speaking brothers. And today we are 4 years after, and the problems look at us in the face. It is even getting worse. At first he also talked about banning Dane guns. Today these guys are using AK-47s. Today we are getting explosion of bombs every day. And the more we delay to solve this problem, the more we invite other problems that we don't know. Because, Javis, I'll be very clear with you that the refusal of a known problem is an invitation of an unknown problem. If you have a known problem that you can solve it, and you refuse that that problem exists, you are indirectly inviting a problem you don't know.
You have not answered my question. My question is, Minister Paul Atanganji said, and I quote, some of those teachers and lawyers, some, not all, some, they wrote some on the line, have collected huge sums of money from partners and people abroad, and they want to destabilize Cameroon. And we are on the fair. And when we look at the context now of this Anglophone crisis, the infighting between the alleged Anglophone leaders who claim they are fighting with us, the way in which they are mismanaging funds, are calling for JAVIS, and yes, was Minister Paul Atanganji not correct? That is why I'm saying he could have been right. But if he knew those who have collected the money, they should have brought them to book, because corruption is a crime. And that's why they arrested some few people, and from January 17th. DOUALA, who was arrested, did he collect money? A lot of people, they arrested a lot of people, and they released some. Was he collected? Did he collect money? DOUALA, did he collect? So you should say those who are arrested, did they collect money? The problem is these people have, if they knew those who collected the money, they should have called the people. But they are denying a problem they know, and then solving things they don't know. That is why I will come back to the point that if the real problem is solved, all other things will fall into place. But if you keep going after cosmetic solutions, you know that somebody has collected money, call the people to book. And no matter what happens, it is necessary we sit on the table and talk this thing out. Okay. We should stop telling that our lives matter, but guns are still in the street, because there is nobody that a gun will shoot and then that person will be alive to talk about the consequence. So these people should stop sitting in Yaoundé and just talking because they are protected. Because you see them, they go out. Even when they go out for meetings in Bamenga, in Kumba, they go out with bulletproofs, okay, to show that the situation they claim is under control has never been under control. If not, they wouldn't have been walking around with bulletproof. Why? Common citizens are there, they are risking their life without the similar protection that they receive. Good afternoon, everyone in the house. Could this be an achievement that I and my family have been displaced from a corner that I was doing well to a place now that we are starting life from level 1? Today you hear them celebrating World Peace Day. Let me ask, is there peace in this country? Wemba watching from Edina. and this other one reads, it says, good afternoon everyone in the house. Good afternoon everyone in the house. Cameroon government knows what they are doing. Our blood have become that sweet to them to drink and remain strong. That's why they've been kind of battle. Thank you very much, Badwin from Yaoundé. And this other one says, good afternoon. The only Anglophone crisis is just a way to take many people out of the church and the presence of God. The only solution we need is during this period is to draw closer to God, because only God will bring a stable peace back, and not only a stable Cameroon, but a better Cameroon. All we need is to go down on our knees and beg for mercy from God, and He will hear our prayer and of course heal our land. Let's go back to God and we'll enjoy benefits of staying with Him. It's coming from Principle in Muyuka, in Mutengene. Apostle Professor Mark, you are equally a man of God. Look at this. I want you to react to this message before taking you down to other questions.
The first thing is, I would say that statement is an irresponsible statement, because you can't, it's not like people are not supposed to be praying and it's like they have not been praying. I believe that we have prayed the most. Problems are not solved through prayer. Prayer is a means of communication with God. God's intervention in an issue does not mean that people should fold their arms and sit down and do nothing. It is time for the Cameroon government to handle this issue.
Okay.
We should not keep on talking about prayer. Prayer is not a problem. Prayer has never been a problem to Cameroonians.
Okay.
Precisely, I am one of those people who pray. And so we have been praying. And I'm sure the person who is talking has been praying. And so you don't sit and fold your arms and say prayer. People shouldn't. The only solution is prayer. That's not the solution to the problem.
Okay. Nothing has been achieved from both the government and our Amber boys. Instead, we are losing our brothers and sisters. Every day is coming for Alvaro Negredo from Udeka. Alvaro Negredo. Prof, let me come back to you. We've been having difficulties to get the comments online based on the ongoing internet issue, which we don't yet know the exact problem. When this crisis started, we've seen people who said there was no Anglophone problem, we had a Cameroonian problem, and yet sent to go and resolve the Anglophone problem. We've seen people who said there is no ongoing armed conflict in North and Southwest region, and yet we have seen them form sent as delegation to go and consult with the people to see how they can resolve the problem. We've seen people who said there is no destruction ongoing in North and Southwest region, but yet they are leading commission of reconstruction, in terms of to come and reconstruct this area. Where are we? And sadly, these are Anglophones.
The sad thing is, you just spoke and the name is Atanganji. You just spoke and you spoke of the former Prime Minister
Mr.
Yang. You just quoted. You spoke of Paul Tasson. Those are individuals who are sitting in government and eating fat. They are enjoying the times, and it seems as if they don't care about the people. It is true that some of them really do care. To claim that there's no Anglophone problem is the worst statement to ever be made by a Cameroonian, and precisely by someone who is coming from the Northwest and Southwest, irrespective of the fact that you are in the government. Even the president himself recognizes that there is an Anglophone problem, and he has made up his mind to look on ways to solve it. So an individual who rejects it does not make that statement a valid statement. It's just like I read what Dr. Chuba once said. If you are somebody who is so emotionally attached to your party lines beyond truth and justice, it means that even if you are a learned person, your learning is useless. Your position has nothing to do, it's useless. You are not to be counted and meet reasonable people when it comes to human beings, because you can't see a reasonable situation, something that is real, and you deny it. It means that you are playing around with situations that are very, very hard. And so I will say that most of these guys who made those statements like of recent, where Paul Tasson actually, I remember, I think it was 2017 or 2018, when he said that it is just normal for the people of Lebialem to stay in bushes. That was the worst. I was like, is this normal? In the Northwest, when you go to my village, you find out that most of our parents, the grandparents, when it is farm time, they actually go and make days in the farm to work. But that is not their life that they will be living in the farm. People have stayed in farms for weeks, months. A minister comes, instead of looking for ways to handle the situation, he claims that it is a lifestyle of the Liberian people to be living in a bush. Those are statements that should not be made. Might be when they make those statements, they don't know that they will be heard and they will remain to follow after them in generations to come. Those are not statements that they should be making. And those of recent even, he claims that everywhere is calm, but when he came for consultations, he remained in Boya. He should have gone to Lebialem or go to those interiors to go and come, because it's consultation. It means you need to consult with the people.
We have seen people who say the people are not in the bushes, that people are not in the bushes, but yet they are sent to go and bring people back from the bushes. So where are we? I just want to get this context. Where are we?
So you see, this is a Jacobine system in which we live in, where things are done in a kind of you see, you make statements which after, when you sit down, you ask if you are in a real, are you real?
Because the context, I think I follow Paul Tasson in one of the sisters network. He said there are not people living now in the bushes. But the question now is, reconstruction is going on to reconstruct the homes of who if they are not living in the bushes.
They have bush houses that they have the bird, and so they are not actually living in the bushes. They are living in houses but in the bush.
You are interpreting. How we coming back to you? Go afternoon to the panel, please. My internet in Yaoundé, I cannot download anything. Is this part of the bad habit of the government? Because it cannot just happen to most of the regions at the same time. It's from Francis in Yaoundé. Francis, we too are experiencing the same problem that you're experiencing. This is greetings to you all, dear compatriots. There is no adequate achievement as far as the crisis is concerned. The Anglophone elite representing the people in the government are the main problem to the people of North and South West region. Not even the French brothers and sisters. I am Brian from Yaoundé. This is a good afternoon to everyone in the studio. Your guests today are very entertaining. The head of state needs to answer many questions. Many people are saying his ministers are giving him misleading information. I would like to know why the head of state can't be interviewed by our journalists in Cameroon. Are the journalists afraid of our president? This is Clinton from Bamenda. This is Clinton from Bamenda. This other reads a good afternoon to you all in the studio. I don't know, maybe those of us in Bonabel were considered as the people of North and South West region because our internet is disturbing. I can't watch a program on Facebook. Thank you very much. Please, you can watch us on YouTube, BT Media. YouTube seems to be fine, but Facebook seems to be having a problem, and WhatsApp seems to be having delays of SMSs and of messages. This other read says, good afternoon, House of Commons. Mr. Atanganji is the one who probably is not getting things clear here as far as is concerned, because he refused the existing Anglophone problem and refused that the problem is being caused. Good afternoon, is Mr. Liu. My name is Thomas Javis, not Mr. Liu. Let me get to you now. On this other side, September 22. A lot of people went out to the streets in North and Southwest region, more than 1 million in the entire North and Southwest region. When we look at the context now, those who went out to the street are being kidnapped as blackleg. those who went out to the street calling for having the same fabric or colors of banners that the non-state groups call them to have, they have been killed by some of these non-state armed groups on the pretext that they are black legs. They have been harassed every day that they are black legs. They have been tortured every day that they are black legs. Their businesses have been set ablaze. The same people who went out on September 22, is that not hypocrisy? As far as the savior is concerned, the savior becomes the oppressed. The oppressor.
Yeah, when it comes to that, Javis, I will not mince word to say that the armed conflict that started with an objective has had a lot of mixed feelings within, and there are a lot of things that are happening that we do so much condemn, because you cannot be killing the same people you are fighting to protect. That's true, and no other person will accept that for any reason. Because if you feel like you are independent to do your own things, then you should have a place where you keep people like that. You cannot be fighting against a system and you behave worse than that system. That one we cannot debate about it, because people have been killed and they were the same people who went out to the street. But when we look at it at one from another dimension, we realize that the two camps are using the people for an experimental test, and the people are paying dearly. We're talking about the killing in Bamenda, the killing in Moyoka. Everybody, at one point in time, the government says it is the Amber Boys. The Amber Boys say no, it is the government forces.
Everybody is playing the role of
yes, everybody is washing their hands clean. But we are asking ourselves, why should the lives of people be used to gain international sympathy? That's the problem. And we realize that whatever thing they are doing, because I thought of it that like killing the woman in Morocco, it was a targeted something. It was something that was targeted, because first, if you would have gone to Morocco and killed 10 boys, it would make no news. Men have been dying, and so the only thing that could attract international sympathy and even national sympathy was to involve a woman who is very much protected during war. And we ask ourselves, how many of us are going to die again? How many more houses will be burned down? How many more innocent people will be killed? How many more military people will die? How many more Amber Boys will die before we understand that round tables solve problems better than round bullets? Before we understand that it is necessary to sit and talk eyeball to eyeball, because black lives don't matter only in America. Black lives matter right in Africa, and it matters in Cameroon. How many times will the number one statesman, the phone of fun, come to sit on the table and look at others eyeball to eyeball and say, okay, we have gone against each other, we have been killing each other, it is time we sat down, it's high time we sat down and tell each other our errors to the face, so that we continue. The Bible says open rebuke is better than secret love. It is better we sit on the table, we rebuke ourselves, because in the midst of conflict, both parties are doing wrong things. It is very true that the both parties are doing wrong things, but if we don't accept to sit and talk and then check out our excesses, the blood will keep flowing, innocent people will keep dying, the population of Cameroon will keep reducing, the economy will keep slipping, and suffering will keep going on and on and on because of pride from both parties, because of the pride, because of extremism. When people are talking about extremism and talk about restorationism being extreme, I said it's a lie. Both parties are extremists, because the government feels like the only solution is effective decentralization, while the restorationists feel like the only solution is outright separation. They need to sit on the table, look at each other, because on the table when they sit, there will be compromise somewhere. Somebody will say, okay, I used to think like this, now you've said like this, and this is how we accept. And we realize we will build this country and it will be a very beautiful place to live.
And the common man is a black leg of all.
But yeah, the common man is a black leg of all, because when you talk to the military, you are an Amber target. When you talk to Amber, you are the military target. So they are caught. That's why we used to say, when two elephants are fighting, it is the grass that is suffering.
Okay. Professor Mark, I'll come again looking at the context as far as 2020 is concerned. Now we're in 2020. Summarily, if you are asked to give a balance sheet as of September 22 and now, from the perspective of you witnessing a crisis, what would that balance sheet be in terms of achievement from both sides?
22nd of September 2017, the Anglophones actually came out in Cameroon. Let me use the word, the Southern Cameroonians came out in their numbers all around the territory. I mean, in the territory, the Anglos, the Southern Cameroon territory, they came out in their numbers, actually showing dissatisfaction to the union, exposing the fact that their grievances have attained a level where they can't sit anymore in the house. That kind of move could not be stopped by any military man, no policeman, because even if they came out, it did not still stop them from going on the streets that day. I thought the Cameroon government learned from it and was actually willing to solve the problem. But since that day to today, we are in September 20th. Tomorrow, on Tuesday, will be the 22nd, which makes it close to 4 years.
Yeah.
That whole scenario that we are experiencing now is not what was expected, not by any Cameroonian. The Amazonian leaders, in quote, in my understanding, when the people went out, was to tell the Cameroon government enough is enough. But look at what they have turned it into. Now they are the ones intimidating the citizens of the Northwest and Southwest, telling them when they are not supposed to go out and when they are supposed to go out. That move and march that day was spontaneous. It is true that it was announced, but it was spontaneous. It happened spontaneously because of the dissatisfaction of the people. But when you look at the situation today, if you ask those same people to come out and march, they will refuse, because of the pain that they have injured, they have suffered. The pains they have gone through from that year, from 2017 till today, is so hurtful that if you tell anyone to say go out and march, like I've been talking concerning the Kamto march of tomorrow, on Tuesday, I've been telling Anglophones, don't dare again, because this time around it might become different. Let Kamto and his people go and march. It might help us. If they can do it, let them go and do it. Everybody is dissatisfied. I will be sincere to tell you that the economic crisis that is actually hitting on Cameroon now is much. So those are the benefits of the crisis.
So it means that if you have to give a rough balance sheet, we are it will be a liability. A liability.
That is what I want.
Is 0 on 10.
Let me just drop.
It's a liability altogether.
When you look at it, we have achieved economic crisis where a tomato, one tomato is sold for 100 francs. Something that never happened in Cameroon before. It has never. So if you look at, we are living at a deficit. That's the balance sheet you wanted to hear.
Thank you very much, Professor Ma. We'll take on this brief transition. When we come back, we'll touch briefly as to the recent death of the ongoing tight security within the north, within the entire Cameroon.
It's almost time you say.
You're welcome back from that break, and if you are just joining us, if you have problems or difficulties getting access to internet, we've If you don't know how that can be solved, but I'll technically advise you to see if you can download the VPN service and see how you can go about the internet. Let me come to you briefly. We have 3 minutes to the end of this program. When you drive across DOUALA, all the major Carrefours, all the major junctions are inundated with riot police, full with gears and water cannons. Far as that is concerned, where are we?
We are preparing, and the government is preparing against 22nd of September, which is a promised march by Kamto and his allies to unseat the legitimate and legal president of the Republic of Cameroon. And when I go down, I see that, I think from my house to this place, in fact, you get a very tense environment. But I do not look at it so negative. I feel like Kamto has succeeded to shaking the roots of the country, because if truly it was 14% of presidential election, then this preparation wouldn't have been this way, because 70% can swallow 14% in no distant time. But it's unfortunate that Kamto is denied manifestation, which to me, because his manifestation is purely to unseat. He talks about unseating. That's where, but if it is manifestation for a change in Cameroon, we need that change. We all need the change. But the news here is that Anglophones have already paid enough, and the French brothers can try to see how it tests, because we've tested a lot of bullets. And Yaoundé is in panic, because when you're in the round, you get the tension, you realize that even if Kamto does not go to the streets on the 22nd, he has achieved a lot. We have realized that his 14% carries a lot of weight, more than some people's 70%, because he has shaken the root, and everybody is on alert. Because I think even as we talk now, I have some people of my job side, they will say, please, one call today, please can we say on the 22nd we are not coming to work because there's tension in the air. People are already alerted that there is tension in the air. So I want to think that even if Kamto doesn't go to the streets on the 22nd, he has succeeded to send a message, a signal to Yaoundé that they never thought there would come a time that he will make just a speech and the whole country will be mobilized with so-called Mamiwata to fight people who are invincible. Unfortunately, Javis, those who are supporting the CPDM government, they are marching in the streets without authorization.
Thank you. Maybe coronavirus has gone on holiday when they are marching, because the minister Malachi says that those people who are planning to go to the streets understand that there is coronavirus and they stand a risk of spreading coronavirus. But when we see others demonstrating, it seems that coronavirus is on the leaf. That's the topic for another day. Professor Mark, briefly, we are out of time. We see cannons, water cannons left and right. We see riot police, we see gendarmeries on every major Carrefour. I think it's a booster of security to those of us who like moving in the night, because you cannot be arrested, cannot be attacked by thieves. I think it's a booster. When you look at this, what's happening?
That's proof of the fact that Kamto, in one way or the other, has been able to touch the government. You see, there is fear and there is panic, like Son rightly said. There's panic in the air. But I would still want to make it clean and plain to Cameroonians that ousting the incumbent president from his seat is not supposed to be demanded by an individual political authority, political leader. It is supposed to be the desire and design of the people to say enough is enough, we will do this. Not because a politician asks for it, because he is asking for it for his political gains. He already has seen that Cameroonians are angry. He has already seen that Cameroonians are suffering, and so he's taking advantage of it. You see, the fact that Cameroonians are thirsty for change has provoked him to see it as an opportunity. That's why I always say Kamto is an opportunist. He's using it to gain political gains, to make some political gains. He now will say, okay, it is because of me that this has happened. But every Cameroonian from within is yearning for change and willing to go any step to see it happen. And so I would tell Cameroonians, in order to make these political guys who, when it comes to violence, political violence, they want to use other people's children, sit at home. But when it comes to political gains and political positions and advantages, they use their children and family members. We should give them we should make them to realize that we have understood their games and choose to stay in our houses. Then we can get up as individuals and say, I think it is time for us. And that would be a spontaneous something, not something called by a political leader. Okay. That's wrong.
Thank you very much, Song. Before we take leave of you, your last word.
Thank you very much, Javis, for inviting me to House of Commons once again. I'm glad to have shared the panel with Professor Mark and Tony. Thanks to all the listeners who are outside there. We pray that on Tuesday you should stay alert, and if French Cameroonians are going out, Anglophone Cameroonians, Southern Cameroonians, please stay home. We have tested the bullet and it's enough for us.
Professor Mark, your last word before we take leave of you.
Thank you, Javis, and I want to say it's a beautiful Sunday, and I expect that we should enjoy our weekend effectively and prepare to stay at home. Maybe just don't go out on the 22nd. Stay at home if you want your life protected and preserved, because I will not be one of those going out. I will be in my house. Even that day, I will not go to work.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We've seen when the Anglophone crisis started in 2016. We've heard the speeches, we've seen actions, we've seen people being arrested, some being kidnapped, some being killed, houses razed, both parties pointing fingers into each other as far as the conflict is concerned. We've seen that of the ongoing Maurice Kamto announcement as far as protest is concerned. We've seen counter protests with people moving out supporting the legitimate and democratically elected president without face masks and left and right. And the minister Malauda Malachi has called on those who want to destabilize Cameroon or those who want to move or demonstrate peace that they should be careful that coronavirus is still out there. I want to let you know that there's still COVID-19, and whatever you do, you should understand that COVID-19 is real. No matter the matter, what matter is your matter. No matter the matter, what matter is your matter. I am Tama Javis leaving you with this as far as the Anglophone crisis is concerned and Cameroon's DOUALA is concerned, that on Tuesday, stay safe and stay out of trouble. God bless Cameroon.